So, pre-season testing has just been completed for the Supercars season and it's thrown up some interesting results. But before we get into that, let's run through the teams, drivers and liveries they will be running this year, so we know what we're talking about. We'll start off with Triple Eight Race Engineering, considering they have the reigning champion in the form of Jamie Whincup in their team. He is joined by Shane Van Gisbergen in their newly released WB Holden. The livery for this year isn't too different from last year, except a bit more white where there was previously a bit of blue. Obviously the main change from the previous year is the upgraded body kit, with a longer front splitter and a larger rear wing, which has been picked up by a lot of people since the reveal. This is what all the Holdens in the championship will look like this year, and personally I don't actually find it too bad. Moving on to the third car in the Triple Eight lineup is Craig Lowndes, who is now drifting further away from Triple Eight by calling his new team Autobahn Lowndes Racing. Interestingly, this new livery for Lowndes looks like it is loosely based off the green-eyed monster from back in his FPR days, which was some of his worst years. Hopefully, this doesn't bring the same omen with it. Now on to one of the hardest team names to pronounce for the year, Mobile 1 Boost Mobile Racing. You really can't put mobile and mobile in the same name here, but I guess that's what keeps the sponsors happy. This year, the team have come together with Andretti Motorsport, but there is almost like zero signs of it on this livery. It isn't exactly a new livery either, with it being almost exactly the same as James Courtney's livery from last year. James Courtney is running the number 25, while Scott Pye remains with the traditional number 2. Tickford Racing, formerly ProDrive, are one of 2 teams entering a whopping 4 cars into the championship this year, with the team being split into 2 sub-teams, the first of which being the Botolo Racing / Monster Energy team. With Mark Winterbottom in a livery that is very similar to last year, and Cameron Waters in the number 6, who didn't actually have any sponsors for his shakedown, but did have a couple of Monster Energy stickers on for testing on Friday. Most likely he will be running a very similar to last year again. The second sub-team of Tickford is Supercheap Auto Racing, with Chaz Mostert in an almost identical car to last year, besides from a couple sponsor changes, along with Richie Stenaway in a car that didn't carry any sponsorship for testing. Nissan Racing is the second team that will be entering 4 cars into the championship this year, with Andre Heimgartner stepping up from their development team in the Super 2 series to the number 7, previously held by Todd Kelly. Despite the team being called Sangled Racing and Car Sales Racing by Supercars on their official driver lineup, Heimgartner was sporting a lovely blue and white Liberty Steel livery for testing. Both Rick Kelly in number 15 and Simona Di Silvestro in the number 78 will have liveries that are once again identical to the previous years, so nothing too interesting to report there. Michael Caruso, however, is running a drive.com.au sponsorship for this season. Brad Jones Racing has entered 3 cars in the series, although for some reason it seems as though Nick Percat is the only one coming under the official Brad Jones banner, since they are only reporting on him on their official Facebook page. Either way, Nick Percat is running an orange and blue livery and sporting the traditional BJR number 8. Tim Slade is running a very similar livery to the previous years, except for the colours being reversed, but honestly I thought that they had the coolest car reveal I've seen in a long time. Like, just look at that, just a supercar blasting along a public road. I assume it's somewhere near Albury, since that's where they are based out of. Third and finally for the BJR team is Tim Blanchard, running a very nice cool drive livery that will certainly stand out. Elvis Motorsport once again have David Reynolds steering their number 9 in a very similar livery to last year. He is joined this year by young gun Anton Di Pasquale, who previously raced for Paul Morris Motorsport in the Super 2 series. He will be sporting the number 99, but we are unsure of sponsors since he was unsponsored for the Sydney test. Shell V-Power Racing are exactly the same as last year, like I could actually show you a picture of last year's car and tell you it was this year's and you wouldn't know the difference. Besides from one nice little detail on the rear windscreen in dedication to one of the team members that passed away in the off-season. Exact same drivers and numbers all around, with Fabian Coulthard running the number 12 and Scott McLaughlin running the number 17. Lee Holdsworth stays with Team 18 Racing, or Preston Hire Racing as they are more commonly known. The livery looks slightly more aggressive, although this may be down to the more aggressive looks of the Commodore. I think this is one of the best looking liveries out there for the year, and it really stands out. Jack Le Brocq steps up from the Super 2 series to join Techno Autosport despite competing in the Enduro rounds with Nissan Motorsport last year. He'll run the number 19. He was unsponsored for testing besides Techno on the wings and front windshield. They may be a rotating sponsorship, as this was the case for the team last year, like other smaller teams in the field. Wilson Security GRM have Garth Tander in the 33 and James Golding in the 34, running a striking white, red and black livery this year. To me it looks like some of the older liveries from the late 90s that were a lot more simple but stood out very well. There's one difference between the two cars, with Tander sporting just Wilson, whilst Golding has Wilson Security down the side. This year, Matt Stone Racing steps up into the main game from the Super 2 series. They bring with them the talent of Todd Hazelwood into the number 35 car, sporting a Big Mate Optus sponsorship. It should be interesting to see whether Matt Stone, previously of Stone Brothers Racing, will be able to be competitive in the series. Finally, we have Will Davison, who as far as I can tell is running mostly independent with major sponsorship from Milwaukee. He'll be running the number 230. On to the actual testing at Sydney Motorsport Park on Friday. The first story to emerge was that of Jonathan Webb and Shane Van Gisbergen almost coming to blows in the pit lane after an incident on the front straightaway. According to those that were at the track, the touch was minor. This is supported by the fact that there has not been an investigation by Supercars into the incident. After the first 3.5-hour session, the two Nissans of Michael Caruso and Rick Kelly topped the timesheets with a 1:29.1794 from Caruso, with Kelly just 300th behind. There was a good gap of 0.4 of a second back to the Ford of Fabian Coulthard. Pre-season testing is never really a good indication of who is on the pace, since last year the Nissans topped the timesheets during pre-season testing, but didn't manage to sustain this throughout the season. Therefore, we shouldn't really read into those times too much. The person who turned the least number of laps during the first session was Garth Tander, completing only 18 laps. This was mostly due to GRM having front splitter issues coming into the first high-speed turn of the Eastern Creek circuit. This issue arose due to the redesign of the Commodore, with the front splitter now sticking out further from the front of the car, while still within regulations. No other teams running Holdens encountered this problem, since they picked up on it during their shakedowns and therefore fitted strengthening devices in the problem area. In the second practice session, Tim Slade topped the table with a 1:28.6157, followed by Fabian Coulthard by almost half a second. Michael Caruso was once again near the top of the table, with a time similar to his practice 1 time, now putting it in third. The first major incident of 2018 occurred when a front right tyre failure on Scott McLaughlin's Falcon caused him to go off the road at turn 1 and impact the tyre barrier. McLaughlin was cleared medically, but his car could not be rebuilt to continue testing. Although Scott did crash out of the session, he did not set the least number of laps, which was Scott Pye, turning only 7 laps. Interestingly, he set the second most number of laps in the first session with 50 laps. And that's all for the pre-season. The real season kicks off with the Clipsal 500 on the 2nd of March, so I'll see you all then.